everyone, and thanks for joining us once again here on Four Friends in a Book podcast. My name is Chris Colston, and of course, I'm here with my friends, S5Ep2, Kimberly Lake, Maria Reed, and this book for the month of October, James by Mr. Percival Everett. Mm-hmm. So if you're new to the channel and tuned in for the very first time, Four Friends in a Book is our monthly podcast series where we have a discussion centered around a book that we're reading together. And so we meet here to discuss that book and kind of review it, talk about it, just have some friendly conversations. We like to consider ourselves a book club mixed with book review. Also, with just table talk amongst friends. And of course, at the end, it wouldn't be a show without it. We have a rant by Mr. Rant Man himself, S5Ep2, to close out our show each month. So again, if you guys haven't already, please go back, catch up, get current with Four Friends in a Book and all the books that we've read, the topics we've discussed here on Four Friends in a Book. And also, look, if you guys have any recommendations for us, any books you want us to cover here on Four Friends in a Books, any topics, we would love to hear that from you guys. So hit us up, like send us a DM, send us an email, like send us a pigeon, whatever y'all want to do, just hit us up. We would love to hear from you guys here on Four Friends in a Book podcast. Mm-hmm. All right, so as I mentioned, we read books over here. Book for this month, James by Mr. Percival Everett. Kind of a alternative perspective of the classic novel by Mark Twain, Huck Finn, The Adventures of Huck Finn. So kind of a different take, a different stance. So told from the perspective of Jim from that book and kind of giving his perspective of these events that unfolded in this classic novel that we all know, that we read in school. You don't have to read that book to read this book and enjoy it. Completely separate, but we're going to get into it. We're going to unpack it. Look, I'm going to tell y'all right now, it's going to be some spoilers. So if you hadn't read the book already, I don't know how we can review this book without giving out spoilers. So look, if you haven't read it already and you want to read it, I'm going to tell you to stop right now and go read this book first, because we are definitely giving spoilers out on this book, because I don't know how else we could talk about it without getting into that. So again, the book for October, James by Percival Everett. And look, let's unpack it. Let's discuss it. Y'all know what the first question is. We always kick the show off with it. What did you think about this book? And if you had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, what would that be? And I'm coming to Miss Maria Reed to kick this book off.
Okay. Well, I really enjoyed the book. Okay, so I have to be honest with you guys. I have never read Huckleberry Finn, The Adventures. What? So I don't, and I thought that was something that everybody did in school or something at some point. But I was thinking back and I was like, I never got to read that book, and I never read it on my own. So but to read this, I was just thinking, well, should I have read that first? But I just kind of delved into it and I loved it. I enjoyed the storyline. I enjoyed the character Jim. I just liked it a lot. I enjoyed his cleverness, how he was able to think so quickly, how he was able to code switch, I love the way this book was written. The author, mad kudos to you. At the end, it got a little crazy for me. It was a little Tyler Perry-ish. Not Tyler Perry. It went a little wild. but it was still good. It was still good. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the way, because a lot of times people when we read about slavery, they don't talk about how clever the slave mind was. And that was something and I'm going into the other questions, but I really enjoyed that. So I would rate that. I would give this book a 9 out of 10. Okay. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I think it was well written.
Okay. So we got a 9 kicking off this review from Miss Maria Reed. Coming to my brother Isaiah next, man. What did you think about this book? And if you had to rate it, what would that be?
So I have a quite different perspective than Laria.
Oh, here we go.
Oh Lord. Like, whenever you give a disclaimer, y'all know how this goes.
So it's not so bad. I'll just be real. Like for the first part, I wasn't even sure if I was just vibing with this book. It started out really, really slow. And I didn't understand what was going on. It was like I felt that something was missing. And it was more being concerned of trying to get to point A to point B. It was a lot of characters being thrown out there. So I was trying to make sense of what was really happening. Then all of a sudden, I think it was around like chapter 18. It's like the light bulb went off like, I think I read this book before, like not this book, but something similar to this. And like the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn when I was a kid, but it was just so long ago that I remember bits and pieces of it, like some of the content, but considering I was so young, I don't remember a lot from the book. But this book, James, is basically reimagining the classic Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I think this book is considered like one of the great American novels. It was ahead of its time due to like the heavily critique of being like the racisms, slavery, and things that was involved with the American South. And I think the difference in Huckleberry Finn and James is just that this book, it gives like a lot of new plot twists, the author actually throws us a lot of loops in the book, like towards like the middle to the end. It looked like you were just like racing, like it got very interesting. Like Laria said, it become like the Tyler Perry like movie. It definitely from the beginning, because the beginning was like too slow to the point that I was about to close the book. But I did persevere. Overall, it was actually a really good book towards the middle and the end. I really did enjoy the book. It was a really good read for me. I rated an 8.
Okay, so we got a 9 and an 8 so far. And my boy said he almost didn't make it. The first part almost took him out.
It was a lot of chapters. So now 18 it started clicking for me.
Okay. I can understand that. All right. So look, we scoring pretty well over here. I was kind of concerned, man, because whenever you give a disclaimer, like I just never know.
You don't know what's gonna happen. Right.
Yeah. It was just that front part was just too slow for me.
Because Isaiah, he'll drop down to a 2 real quick, and okay. All right. So a 9 and an 8. So coming to Miss Kimberly Lake next. If you had to rate this book, what would it be? And just again, what did you think about it overall?
Overall, I'm like Laria. I do not remember reading this book. I feel like it was on my classroom agenda, but I don't remember reading it. And I also know it was a movie, and I had no interest in watching it. So going into this, I was just like, because I wasn't really interested in looking at the movie or rereading the book since it was a classic. So I was like, I didn't know if I would like it, but I loved the book. I listened to it on Audible, and the guy reading it, I recognized his voice from other books we've listened to. So he did a really good job narrating the story, bringing the characters to life. When I was listening to it, it was like a movie playing in my head. So it was like I was seeing everything about, like Laria said at the end, it got really Tyler Perry-ish, but I was like on the edge of my seat, like in my brain, I was seeing all the characters. I was on the boat getting shipwrecked and all kinds of stuff. So I was like, I thought it was a really great book. If I could rate the book, I would actually give it, as like Laria said, a 9 out of 10. I'm not usually into like adventure and all that, what it is, but I loved how it was told from the story of the enslaved person. And like Laria said, it was very cleverly written. And it made me think like, this is how people really were back in the day. We never really hear this side of the story. So even though it's fiction, I know there were plenty of enslaved people like this. So I love that the story was told from this perspective. So I give it a 9. I would recommend it to anybody. I know it's going to be turned into a movie, I believe, made by Steven Spielberg, who is one of my favorite directors, who also made one of my favorite movies, The Color Purple. So I think he's going to do the book justice. So I can't wait to see it. So I get the book, read it, listen to it on Audible. It's great.
Yeah, that's good. So we got 2 9s and an 8 thus far.
What do you think, Chris?
And now it's my turn.
Interesting.
No, so you know what? I'm actually following suit. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. To be honest, I think this is probably the best book that I've read this year. Great story, great layout. I heard about the book. It's been trending on the bestsellers list. And so I read, as Isaiah mentioned, I read Huckleberry Finn when I was in elementary or at some point doing like public education. So I know I read the book, and I was kind of wondering, should I go reread that to read this book? But I didn't, and I'm actually glad that I didn't, because this book still stands on its own. Look, as Kim just mentioned, look, shout out to Dominic Huffman. He's the narrator. I listened to it on Audible. I mean, this guy just, the characters, like Isaiah mentioned, there's a lot of character development going on in the first part of the book. But Dominic Huffman, he just really lays out like the characters, the voices. I mean, he does a great job narrating this book. And so I was thoroughly invested into the characters. Again, there's a lot of resemblance of the Adventures of Huck Finn, but just from a completely different narrative, completely different perspective. And you're hearing it from the perspective of Jim, who transitions to James in the end, and we'll kind of get to that point. But just a great book overall. If I had to rate this book, like I said, I think it's the best book I read this year. So look, I'm going out, man. I'm throwing out 10s.
I'm throwing out 10 in a long time. Whoa.
I'm throwing out 10s.
Okay.
It's good.
I think this is the best book that I have read this year. Like I said, it's kind of a historical fiction. Typically, I'm not a fiction guy, but as Laria mentioned, just kind of hearing that perspective of the creativity and just the genius of the enslaved mind during that time to be able to adjust to different situations, to code switch, to kind of not really tell their truths just to survive, but like being almost genius level. I mean, Jim was able to read, he was able to write, he was able to do all these things, but he didn't like show his cards. And I just think Percival Everett did a great job of writing this book. Magnificent story and a different perspective of the classic novel that, well, apparently some of us read and remember. Some of y'all just forgot all about it
at all.
I don't think I ever read it.
Yeah, but great book from my perspective. So we got 2 9s, an 8, and a 10 here on Four Friends in the Book. So again, if you guys haven't, go pick it up, check it out. James by Percival Everett. All right, so Kim kind of alluded to it. The rights have been sold as far as the rights to make this into either a short film or series or whatever it may be. And so there's a lot of different details and a lot of just activities and action that's happening through this book. So Isaiah mentioned, it's kind of slow building. The book is broken out into 3 parts. You got chapters in between to kind of lay out different things. And as Laria mentioned, like you get as far as the end, it get a little wild,
crashing out.
Very, very wild.
For me, I think it was like a combination of like some Django Unchained, some Mission Impossible, some Tyler Perry. Like it was a whole bunch going on. Even just the little like finding out that like Jim had some kids that we were not expecting. And
woo, Jim, my boy.
I'm trying not to give spoilers.
Around, okay.
I'm trying not to give spoilers, but I think we had to get to it. But
you're gonna have to.
But just speaking from that perspective, what was you guys' favorite part like of the book, of the story? So Isaiah kind of mentioned it started off a little slow, but really took off in part 2 and 3. But given that, what was your favorite part of this story, James by Mr. Percival Everett? And I'm coming to Isaiah on this one, man. What's your favorite part of this book?
I think you started to touch on what was my favorite part, Chris, about the code switching and the way they actually spoke in the book. And I like the portrayal of how the author actually had the enslaved people speaking. Like, you mean these were self-educated people. They secretly learned how to read, learn how to write. They were sneaking books from Judge Thatcher's library. I like that even though they was enslaved, they did not lose their dignity. They knew how to read, they write, this code switching. That was their way of survival. It was disheartening of me of reading, trying to actually speak less than what you're capable of just to survive. Like, and that's for me, not just saying take it away from this book, just for me, like, we as people, we need to stick to that, like Ain't no need to code switching with intelligent people. We can go out, we can inspire the world. Don't want to go off topic or anything, but that was just me overall. My favorite part of the book, like Jim never backed down. Like he stuck to his word. He persevered. I like how he was just self-educated. Like, you know, how he actually spoke, what he was able to speak upon throughout the book. Even though he was enslaved, he wasn't enslaved in his mind. Like if you have that in your mind and you train that you can do anything, you can conquer the world. And if you read this book, you will understand what I mean when Jim persevered to his story to find his family. But overall, that's just my favorite part of the book. Like the code switching, the self-education part of it. I commend Jim for that.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. All right, coming to Kim next. Did you have a favorite part of the book or even a favorite moment that really stood out to you as you were reading this book again, James by Percival Everett?
I am like Isaiah. Like I loved it was at the beginning of the book when Jim was talking to the little kids and he's giving them basically lessons on how to code switch. And I just thought that was really interesting because I was like, I know it really was like that. And I could imagine we're all here intelligent and how it must have felt to be like, have to really dumb yourself down for the ego of like the white people around you. It's just like the stress of that. And then just the brilliance of the enslaved and how he's telling the kids, like, how would you answer this? And they're saying like, oh, I'm gonna tell her to do this. And he's like, nah, that you're coming off a little too strong. And they get like, no, sir, ball. Like, yeah, what do you think? Like, just plain, like, really dumb. And I was like, man, that would drive me crazy. Just thinking about it was driving me crazy. But I just really love that because we have kind of brought that, as I said, code switching. We still kind of do that today in our culture as well. So it was just one of my favorite parts of the book was that the code switching.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, I think for me, when it got to part 3 of the book, like I said, it just took off. I enjoyed the first 2 parts. And look, I'm about to go and get these spoilers. I can't hold no more. Go
ahead.
You want that boat ride? He's talking about that.
We get to part 3. And Jim's like, Hook, I'm your father. It's true. And I was like, what? Like, would have never thought.
I know, never.
Like, that was so out of the blue. Like, I was not expecting it at all. And even, like, Cook was like, so you've been lying to me all my life? And Jim was like, look, I grew up with your mother. We grew up as kids together. And Hook was like, so I'm black? And so even Hook, he starts trying to speak black and started doing his little, like, almost enslaved talk. Then look, my boy Jim, he take out what's the guy, the overseer.
I know you talking about his name. Yeah.
Tom Hopkins, like he take him out, like, and it kind of the same thing is like they were so baffled that he was able to speak so properly and so educated. Like they didn't even realize they were about to die. Like he didn't understand that he was about to get killed. He was just like, why are you talking like that?
Talking like that. Like it's crazy. You about to die.
And so just when it got to part 2 and 3, even them and the blackface ensemble, him meeting Norman and Norman really being a black guy that's like playing or portraying himself as a white person, and then him and Jim running away and like coming up these schemes that basically like to make money. They're gonna sell Jim and he's gonna like run away, and they're gonna keep doing this whole plot to kind of make money. Like when it got to part 2 and 3, like them burning the farm down, like it was a lot, man. But it was really like I just thought about like Django and like, hey, I'm going back to get my family. Like it was just so. But I was like, yes. And look, when he tied the judge up to that tree,
my boy George Thatcher.
Oh man, I was just like, yes. And the judge was like, what? Jim, what are you doing? Like, how are you speaking like this? But it's like he didn't understand that it was like again, the whole code switching, the enslaved people really dumbing themselves down, almost to make like these white people feel comfortable. So like they didn't want to show their education. So like I said, when they got to part 2 and 3 of this book, it just really took off. I was just like, yes. When he went back and found his family, and they like knocked the other man out. He shot him. I was like, yes. I'm telling you, man, it was like Django, Mission Impossible, Tyler Perry. It was like a whole bunch of stuff all together. So look, I know I gave some spoilers, but when you get to part 2 and 3 of this book, like that was my best part for me. It just really was amazing. I was just so excited. I was happy for Jim, for James, for the whole everybody that got free doing that section. And it was that was the part that kind of really livened the book up. And it was just good. It was good. I really enjoyed it. So all right, coming to Laria next. We didn't kind of touch on a few things. I hope we left you a little nugget to kind of still speak
Y'all took
on.
all my stuff. Everybody said everything I was gonna say. I'm like, well, dog. But I agree with Kim and Isaiah about the how intelligent he was. It was two things too that I really liked about him, about Jim. He was clever and he was very compassionate. Like when they went to do their scheme, him and Norman, and he saw the girl that looked like a boy, Sammy, I think it was. I think that was the name. And he was like, I can't leave her here. Like, come on, me. Like, we're talking about you about to lose your life, but you're still thinking about somebody else. He was extremely compassionate. And he was compassionate in the sense of he didn't have time. He found out he was going to be sold and he was gone like, boom, I'm coming back to get y'all. I'm going to figure out a plan as I go, but this is what I got to do. And he was able to make very quick decisions. Like everything was so split second. And he was just not a dumb man at all, by no stretch. So those are the two things that I really liked about his character. He was just so quick-minded and quick to give the right answer at the right time. And he had studied white people so well. He knew what they thought and how they thought and how to say stuff to make it where, he could get by and get through. So I loved it. I enjoyed that part of him.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, very good. Yeah, like I said, man, if you guys haven't, I know we're giving away spoilers, and I gave my disclaimer when we started. Like I don't know how we would review this book without giving away some of the secrets and the tea on it, because it was just such a great book.
Right.
And I would love to see it come to screen as well. So all right, so we got a 10, 2 9s, and an 8 of this book for October. If you guys haven't already checked it out, I know we gave a whole bunch of spoilers away, but James by Percival Everett. Great book. Again, a retelling or a different perspective of the classic novel, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. And I think Percival Everett does a great job of unpacking and telling this story. I was still considering, should I go back and read like Mark Twain's book? I don't think I want to. I think
I'm not.
Me neither.
I think this book
don't need to.
I think this book does just a great job. I don't even want to like convolute any of the greatness of James at this point. So a great story. If you guys haven't checked it out, highly rated here on Four Friends in the Book. So definitely check it out. And if you guys have read it, we would love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions about it as well. So drop us some comment right now about what you would rate this book as, and also what your favorite parts are. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. So again, we don't only read books here on Four Friends in the Book. We like to talk and just catch up and have some conversations about things that are going on in our country and the world. And so a big thing right now, of course, we are in the month of October. In the United States, November is election time. And so we are fastly approaching the presidential election and also some other opportunities for elected officials as well with your state and local government. But the primary thing here is just the presidential election. And so kind of want to get you guys' thoughts and opinions about how you feel about this whole election cycle. I mean, it's been kind of, we touched on it a little bit in our previous episode, just, with, Kamala Harris stepping up, Joe kind of stepping down. He's like, hey, I'm not going to do this. Kim mentioned that, like, President Biden looks like he's just getting reinvigorated with a newfound, like a newfound life now, because he has the pressure and the stress of like not doing his presidential campaign. Just kind of want to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions, especially with, so we're in a digital age right now where, everything happens on like social media, also within like TV and just the media. we're hearing a lot of these campaign ads, some of these like kind of smear ads as well. And like I mentioned before, we only hear this like during this time of like campaigning. Like you would think if there was like all this wrong that's been done, like someone would have highlighted it much sooner, but we wait till the election cycle for this stuff to come out. And then we hear all these smear campaigns and all this negativity, a lot of misinformation as well. And like I said, in social media realm, it's sometimes hard to kind of fact check and know what's true. And so just kind of want to get you guys' thoughts and opinions about this election cycle, and also just being even in the digital age of like social media and the news outlets, presenting information either correctly or incorrectly, and just how you feel with this whole overall cycle right now. And so I'm coming back to Miss Kimberly Lake on this one to kick this question off. How are you feeling about this election? Are you tired? Are you ready for it to be over with? Like, what are your thoughts about everything going on right now, especially with our digital age of information and how it's shared and conveyed?
Well, I'm tired. Like every election year around this time, it gets to be like this. For me, I love TikTok. TikTok is my little escape and everything. But with the misinformation, TikTok is like a major platform for misinformation. And my concern is a lot of people don't fact check on their own. So we live in an age where everybody has like social media, your phone, you can do a video and it can go to thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people that you wouldn't even have that reach if you didn't have social media. So for me, the misinformation now is crazy to me. If somebody can write a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok, and people will take it as facts, like they won't even bother to Google it. So for me, that's big for me. Like if I see something, if I don't see the actual clip, I'd be like, did they really say that, or did it really happen? Let me do a couple Google searches, and a lot of times it's a clickbait title, so it's misrepresenting what actually happened. But people just go off the titles of articles and make an opinion what they're going to do with the election, or just what people say. And you don't even know these people. And half the comments online are probably bots anyway from Russia or China or something. So it's just so much misinformation put out there. So my hope is that people take this time during the election, and when you see something, just take a couple of seconds, Google, Chat GPT, put it in and see if anything comes up, just so you can be aware. Because now with AI, like you like by the time it gets really good, you're like, did somebody really say that? The clip, it's just crazy right now. So I just think now would be a good time to inform yourself. Information now travels so fast, and it seems like when it's wrong, it travels super fast. Like it does. Talk about a lot. So I just think just inform yourselves, people. Inform yourself.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. Like I'm surprised you was such a strong advocate for TikTok, and now you pointing out some of these.
It's good for entertainment and learning random things, but also the flip side is it's a lot of misinformation out there.
That's very true.
All right, so for entertainment purposes only, but for some educational stuff, you might have to fact check. Okay, I get it. Coming to Isaiah next, man. How are you feeling about just the overall presidential election, and also again the digital age that we're in right now with information, how it's being conveyed, misinformation, some of these smear campaigns? Just your overall thoughts about as we're leading up into this presidential election in November of 2024.
Well, but overall, I don't talk about it as much, but I'm not really exhausted from the elections. I don't think that this election cycles require like a meltdown like some people are actually doing, but I do want to point out something very, important to me is like the Black community who actually believe that we cannot vote and try to get changes that which we need for our community. And literally no other community actually does this, holding their vote except for us. I don't understand it at all. Voting rights, reforming the criminal justice system, reparations, those are things that are important to us. And what we have to do, we actually have to actually vote at the highest level of political engagement. Otherwise, if anybody telling you to hold your vote, that's actually self-sabotage. I really actually don't get the logic when folk think they actually don't have to vote, that changes will come, that it's not going to happen. That's actually baffling to me, considering the things that we see actually in the news, actually that conservatives are actually doing. Like Kim said, there's just so much misinformation that actually goes out there about talking about Black jobs, about saying that people are actually eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio, to the things that you actually see once you actually able to fact check. You actually have to actually fact check all the way to the election when you actually go in to vote. You actually have to know everything about you, everything that you're going voting for, that's the candidate that you're going to vote for, because people say so much stuff, and I can't actually understand why people repeat these crazy stories and they actually just travel and it don't make any sense. But actually, this presidential election is actually very important because we can potentially get someone in the Oval Office that can actually advance the political, the economic, and the actual policies for the better life of Black folk in America.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Like, you know, our resident politician over here. We always like to hear his perspective. Look, if Isaiah ever is not on Four Friends in the Book, he's probably out campaigning somewhere. So yeah, I just know that he is. I definitely see it in your future, brother. All right, coming to Laria next. What are your thoughts about just again the presidential election? Information, how it's conveyed, how it's shared in this digital age, just all of that good stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, it's two things. The first thing is I'm really concerned to make sure that people, especially in Georgia, know their status of voting so that when they go to the poll, they're actually still on the roll at their address, because a lot of people were dropped. And I'm just interested to see how that's going to fly in November. The other thing is, I just feel like the Diddy trial is taking over the election.
Right.
I mean, we didn't talk about baby oil way more than Kamala and Trump. It's like, and then did you see the Diddy trial? People talk to me about that way more than they do with the election. So
about Young Thug.
Right. We got a lot of trials going on. But I just feel like the entertainment side of things has kind of overshadowed this election. And because there are so many things happening with the hurricanes, it's just a lot that's been going on leading up to it. And then even what's concerning to me as well, and I'll be done, is the fact checking. Because when you actually have a candidate say, I thought we were not doing fact checks, that's concerning. You know what I'm saying? So we're not going to go off of what the truth is. We're just going to come up with whatever I tell you is the truth, because you're telling me the facts are wrong. Right. So that should be alarming to us as a society, where we can't tell people, I don't care what the truth is, it's the truth. So if I fact check and say, no, that's incorrect, it doesn't matter what party you are. Things just lies are lies and truths are truths. So that bothers me, because the integrity of the race is compromised. So I just feel that, as citizens, we've got to say something, because I think we're kind of waiting on other people to do it, and it'll never happen.
Right.
So
yeah, that's good. You guys bring up all good points. I think there's positives and negatives of like social media and our ability to kind of connect and share information, but we have to be conscious that like anybody can now be a reporter. I mean, we can go live, even us here on Four Friends in the Book, like we're giving our perspective and sharing it amongst the masses. But you have to fact check everybody and everything. And so just because someone has a platform and they're able to kind of speak intelligently about certain topics doesn't mean they're actually accurately, describing them and giving out truths. And so we have to fact check everyone because this digital age has given everyone a platform to kind of stand on. And that does lend to information going out that's not accurate. Even at the highest level, like I said, we've had candidates and people on these public platforms that are still spewing out information that's not correct. And it's and I'm pretty sure they're getting fed information or misinformation from someone else. But you would think before you go publicly speak on something that you've done your own due diligence, check it as well. And so I think that just leads us to a place where people don't trust the process, they don't trust the election, and it adds even more. It kind of just muddies the waters even more, and I think that's where a lot of the mistrust in our process happens. And Laria kind of bring up a good point. I mean, especially within our community, like we get so easily distracted. So like we know this is a big election, and like I said, Diddy is taking over on Black Twitter and Black Instagram. Like we're spending more time talking about those things, and it makes you wonder, like, is that by design? Like, who's leading those efforts? Because we're so consumed with those things, opposed to like what's really going on. And I also think some people just kind of burn out and fatigued about the election. They're just ready to get it over with. To Isaiah's point, I think some people think that it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. But as we mentioned multiple times here on Four Friends in the Book, we're not going to tell you who to vote for, but we are very strong advocates for utilizing your vote. I mean, this is a right that people have died for. Right.
I thought you was going to say we advocate real strongly for Kamala Harris.
I'm like, nah, I ain't making no political statement.
But we advocate really strongly for
yeah.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
No, I ain't going to say that on my public platform. But, I'm just going to tell you to go out here and exercise your vote. Like I said, people have died for these rights. And it's a shame for people to have the ability to now do something that people have really fought for and lost their lives for. I mean, we just read this book, James. Yeah. James was very well learned and educated. He could read and write, which was a crime at that point. I mean, those were criminal activities at that point. And now we have free access to do these things, and people don't even take advantage of it. So, again, we're stepping into election. As Laria mentioned, definitely check your status. That is one of the positives of kind of our digital age. You can go online and go to a website and check your polling location, check your status. Like, you can do all those things like instantly. I think you may have already missed the deadline for registration, and depending on where you are, but still go out, exercise your right to vote. Because that's your voice within this country, within our process of elections, and also for local and state and city stuff. Like
that's the biggest one,
right?
Really, because you can see from all these hurricanes and all this stuff, the people that make the decisions are your city mayors, your governors, your city councils. Those are who are making the decisions for like Tampa and all the and you worried about a federal election, which you still need to exercise, but your school boards, all of those things are so important, and we just and they'll show like the numbers, like 2,000 people went to vote for, you're like, we got a city full of thousands of people and that's all that went, that's sad. So sorry about that. I got a little passionate about what
you went around
it makes me mad because I'm like, y'all let these people in, stay in office and you put them in there, and then when things happen, I'm there, he ain't da-da-da. I'm like, you didn't even vote. You didn't vote in the election. You don't even know what you got.
Know who your city councilman? Come on.
Yeah, you don't know what you have.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, so we just wrapped up this book again for the month of October, James by Percival Everett. Great story, great novel, very highly rated here on Four Friends in the Book. I also had a quick discussion about just the presidential election, as Laria just mentioned, and Isaiah and Kim as well. We need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence as far as fact checking, making sure we're getting accurate information, even the stuff that we share, that we're sharing accurate information, and also just exercising their right to go out and vote. The election is upon us. Of course, we put a lot of emphasis on the presidential election, but again, those state, local, city elections are just as important. And honestly, they have more impact oftentimes than you would see at the higher level.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So great discussion. All right.
Always.
Time to transition to our favorite segment of the show, which we entitle The Rant. 60 seconds uninterrupted, coming from none other than Mr. Rant Man himself, Mr. Isaiah Tukes, where we give him 60 seconds to kind of speak from his heart. I mean, we never know what he's going to say, what he's going to talk about. Like, he may rant on the rant from last month's rant.
Right.
We never know. But we give him the floor to kind of speak and to talk freely. So, brother, the floor is yours once again. 60 seconds starting now. Go.
I just want to give a shout out to Marcellus Williams. Unfortunately, he was recently executed. I don't want to talk about the details of his crime because I feel that it's irrelevant because this man is gone and there's nothing that we can do to change that. However, I think that we can do something about the justice system. When it comes to death row, I'm thoroughly confused on how the process works because if you look at this man's story, he was executed, but at the same time, the DNA evidence did not point to him being the guy who actually committed the crime. The prosecution team even said that they could not convict him on good conscience because the DNA did not lead him to committing the crime. There was no smoking gun. A lot of people thought he was innocent. Many people felt that they got it wrong and they didn't care. And it's just disturbing to my core. So as much as I want to say there's nothing that we can do to reverse the situation, I would just want to say rest in peace, brother, to the family and to anybody who may be suffering because of this. I feel that when it comes to death penalty, that's the one time that we should be 100%, not even 99.9, but 100. And that's that on that.
Yeah, even thinking about, so many people that have been put to death under this criminal system that we have, and understanding that the evidence may not have really been sufficient to sentence them to death, or things have been overturned in the future with DNA evidence. And so it still lends us to question, how some of these things come to be, whether you're for or against a death penalty. And some countries have gone to the length of not having a death penalty because of this actual instance here where people have been put to death unjustly. So once again, brother, we thank you for educating us and keeping us informed here on Four Friends in the Book. All right. So just wrapped up the book, had a discussion about president, and my brother just killed his rant once again. So Isaiah, tell him what's coming up for next month here on Four Friends in the Book podcast.
Hey guys, before we let you go, please tune in to next episode. We'll be reading I Take My Coffee Black by Tyler Merritt. You don't want to miss it. L'Oreal, please let the viewers know when they can tune in.
You guys can tune in with us every third Thursday right here where you're watching us now.
Right. And if you are on social media, make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and if you're watching on YouTube and aren't a subscriber, subscribe to our channel right now.
Please subscribe.
Exactly. And of course, guys, we're on the podcasting services as well. So check us out there if you haven't already. If you don't want to see our pretty faces, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcasting app.
Apple, Spotify, win it all.
Yes. So, and as always, let's continue to read, let's learn, let's grow, and let's have a discussion right here on Four Friends in a Book. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you, guys.